Welcome to the Stay Paid podcast, where we help agents and entrepreneurs master the latest business trends to unlock growth and create a life of freedom. Brought to you by Reminder Media.
Welcome to Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree.
And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're not already subscribed, while you're there, drop us a review. We will read it here on the show. Joining us this week, as always, Cody Smith and Stephen Acree of the Acree Brothers Realty Team, #1 team in Lynchburg, Virginia. Welcome, gentlemen.
What is up? What is up?
What up?
And our special guest today is Sandra Gebhardt, known as the Queen Bee of Organic Social Media Marketing. Sandra has worked with thousands of small business owners, helping people to confidently use their unique voice, embrace their passions, and build personal brands that stand out. She's spoken at TEDx, been featured in 2 documentaries, hosted her own top-rated podcast, Binding Authority, and her latest book, How to Go From Unknown to Famous Online in Less Than 20 Minutes a Day, is a blueprint for achieving digital visibility with actionable, we like actionable,
Yes,
time-efficient strategies. Sandra, welcome to Stay Paid.
Hi, guys.
Sandra, it is great to finally have you on. I feel like this is almost too late. We have known each other now for years out on what you call it, the circus, the
circuit.
road.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, Andrew Sachs, and I end up at all these same insurance conferences, but you are a great speaker and thought leader on marketing. Super excited to pick your brain on how do you go from unknown to famous online. And then, you have a tagline there, just literally 30 minutes a day using Facebook and LinkedIn. So I would love for you to dive right into what made you write the book. Why did you feel it was needed? And then let's get into some of the tactics that you put out in the book.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to be here, you guys. Thank you so much. And yes, it's incredible. The whole premise of the book is literally how I got here, right? I'm in Roundup, Montana. It's a small town. It's as small as it sounds here in my living room right now. And the tools that I use, what I call the 5x5x5 inside the book, How to Go From Unknown to Famous Online, is the exact tools that I use to meet guys like you and speak at events, and even my TEDx. All of that stuff has happened through me using the points that I discuss inside the book here. It's actionable. It's stuff that I've done. I don't have, the first thing I want everybody to realize is you don't have to do everything. We've gotten very much into a content creation world, right? Mm-hmm. So, Cody puts on his bikini and dances on TikTok, or wait, no, that was somebody else, right?
Happens. That would get some views. Yeah.
Supposed to go viral.
Yeah, everybody wants to go viral, right? So, and I've seen people that are, insurance agents that have gone viral for a cool video or a thought that they had, and it doesn't result in any sales because you're not making any connections. So we've really gotten into this one mind track of, I need to be a content creator. And that in and of itself is its own whole job, right? We're looking at video editing. We're looking at coming up with skits. We're looking at scripts. We're looking at doing all of these different things. And that can be very, very overwhelming to just somebody that's trying to run a small business, maybe a real estate agent or an insurance agent, or even a hairdresser, or the gal I bought my glasses from, right? We're all just trying to get people into our doors. And what I teach is opposite of content creation. You can go and look at my socials. I have like somewhere close to 7,000 followers on Facebook, somewhere around 5,000 followers on LinkedIn. I don't have a dedicated YouTube channel. I don't have a dedicated TikTok. I don't do a lot of, edited videos and things like that. So everything that I'm coaching on, everything I wrote the book on, is me going forward and making, running a 6-figure marketing agency every year, speaking at events, getting paid to speak at events, with a small but mighty following. And that's the one point I really want everybody to get, is you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers or tens of thousands of followers. You really just need people that know, like, and trust you and want to do business with you. And then the referrals come in and all of that stuff. So the premise of what I'm teaching here, and the premise of the 5x5x5, really is taking in-person networking and moving it online.
So how do you define famous? Because most people think famous, you need the hundreds of thousands of views. You need to be that well known. Like, how are you defining going from unknown to famous with that smaller audience that then is effective for your business?
That is an excellent question. And when we're looking at it from a local marketing perspective or even a national marketing perspective, if you walk into the grocery store and people recognize you and you don't kind of recognize them, that's my definition of famous. If you're at a conference and people come up to you and say, "Oh, you're Sandra Gebhardt. I see you online." That's what I'm considering famous, is you're getting content out into the world, making connections. And then when you're out in real life, IRL, as the kids used to say, I don't know if they still do. You
Sounds
people
like
are stopping you.
policy, IRL.
Well, see, that's happened to you. You've been recognized, right?
Me? Yeah, I went to the ER I think it was 6 months ago. I got a stomach virus, and literally 3 of the nurses knew who I was. And it's probably because I'm super attractive, but
After puking your guts out, you're like, oh, they know who I am. So I guess talk about then, content wise. Like, I know in the book you talk about content and how to captivate I'll call it your audience with content. In your framework, like, how do you teach people to do content if an insurance agent or real estate agent's like, okay, I want to become famous in my local market. How often should I be posting? What should I be posting? How would I go about that?
I'm going to say 3 points. I like to start conversations like this and say there's 3 points, and then sometimes there's actually 5, or there might only be 2, but we'll go with 3 to start with. Okay?
3 sounds better.
So there's 3 points here. 1, I say before you go to post, you need to close your eyes and pretend like you're in a networking situation. Okay. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook specifically, you can add 5,000 people to your personal Facebook profile, and everything should be done from your personal Facebook profile. Your LinkedIn is still your personal LinkedIn profile, right? We're not putting a business front in front of this. It's our name. It's us. We are our own brand. So I take those 5,000 people that I'm connected with, or the people that I'm connecting with every day, which is the first step of the 5 by 5 by 5. And I think about, okay, if I was in a room with these folks, if I was at a conference, if I was at a networking situation, what would I tell them about today? Right. And a lot of times online, we post from our emotional standpoints, right? Like, oh, I had a rough morning, or I had a fight with my husband today, right? But you don't walk into a networking situation and say, you're not going to believe what my husband did this morning. Right. But we do that online. So we have to remember that number 1, everybody has to write this down. Facebook, LinkedIn, social media is for making money. It is not for staying connected with Jessica from high school. You really didn't like her that much in high school anyway. Now you're just like creeping on what she's doing in life. Okay. So we're not average people. We're not average Facebook users. We're not there just for the drama. I mean, we are there for the drama, right? Like,
I was going to say
serious.
I kind of like that. That would pull me in.
Yeah. So sometimes we're there just for the drama. The other night, the Tyson Paul fight, the best thing about that whole night were the comments. Like, my friends are hilarious.
Going insane. Everybody's feet. I was like, I didn't even think you watched fighting. I didn't even know you were into boxing, and these people have their thoughts on the fight.
Yes. And the streaming problems. That was my favorite part, was like people were like coming up with these hilarious memes. But then on the other side of the coin, like if you go back and look at Netflix's, their post and then the comments underneath it, like you can see a lot of times we think that people on social media are thinking the same way we are, right? We're all just mirroring ourselves back in the world, trying to find people with commonalities. And it was a really good real life example of how crazy people are. So you're not gonna please everybody either. There were people that were like, I want a refund. I'm like, a refund for what? It's a free fight. Like, you didn't pay anything. So that was really interesting to me. That we'll call that point 4. But back to point 1. We want to treat each person that's on our social media as a real life human. Number 1, we have to remember these are real life humans with their own problems. And we want to really position ourselves like we're in a networking situation. Okay. So what would we say to them? Then we get into things like, every single time I do this talk, I'm working with a client. Nearly every time people are like, well, I don't care that people post about their meals, or I don't care if you're having a cup of coffee this morning. And they're really worked up about it too, right? They're like, I don't care about people's cup of coffee. And I'm like, I feel like you're having a big reaction to people's cup of coffee right now. Like, clearly you do care to some capacity. You're bringing it up at a conference. This is your one question you got to ask, right? So we get to thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, well, I want to be original. I don't want to be the person to post my cup of coffee. But we really have to start thinking about how can we use those easy pieces of content. What does it say? What is it? Let me just ask you guys. If I post my morning cup of coffee from a local coffee shop, what else is that saying as marketers, right? We have to think about what else we're saying with the posts that we put out. So can anybody answer that question? Pop quiz.
I'm maybe
Pop quiz.
Yeah, getting out into the community, like I'm working, like I always tell people, like when I do a post at 5 a.m. right in the morning, it doesn't just say that, I'm in there working out. It says I'm disciplined, right? It says I'm a go-getter. So, maybe something along those lines would be the way I'm thinking. Yep.
You're supporting local businesses, right? Even if it's a franchise gym, you're still, somebody owns it, right? Same with the coffee example. Usually it's a local person that owns everything, right? Even if it's a franchise. So you can start working on co-branding opportunities. If you want to talk about, for insurance agents, if you want to talk about life insurance, that would be a great time in the morning to show people I'm up, I'm disciplined, I'm getting ready to start my day. I take my health serious because I want to buy more life insurance, right? That's not the best hook, but again, you see, and then it turns into co-branding opportunities. So maybe it's a workout and ask me questions, and you have the owner come in and work out with you, and you guys are doing a live video. And so it's not just I'm at the gym. You're not, you're a loser, I'm a winner, right? And a lot of times we can get into that thinking that we're an Andy Elliott or somebody like that. And that brand really only works for Andy Elliott, right? And sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if it works all the time. I guess it does. Well, all attention's not bad, I guess.
So help me out though. So like, is this, so we talk about 5,000, the max on Facebook. Are all these people though, as you're adding them to your friend base, are these people or you're actually saying like treat it like a networking event with people that you don't know to become famous online, right? Because that's I'm a little bit confused on that. Like, do we know everybody in our database on Facebook, or is it like you're just adding people you don't know?
Yes. So you are adding people you don't know. There's a chapter in here on that. Talking about, so we put together what I call a hit list, right? Okay. So we should always have, I work in fives, right? We should have 5 lists with the top 5 people we want to be connected with. And my general rule of thumb and what I coach on is don't ever just take a business card. Oh, Josh, it was really nice to meet you. Oh, here's my business card. Oh, awesome. I'm going to go put this in my purse and I'm never going to look at it again. Or it's going to fall out 6 months from now and I'll try to remember what happened. No, we instantly connect online because now that person's been brought into my sphere of influence. So you really have to think about it like you are hosting your own networking event. Every single day, Facebook and LinkedIn is sitting there waiting for you to talk to the people that are connected with you. So I'm a big proponent in if I want, so one of my goals is to get a speaking event in Virginia. So now I've met 2 people, Cody and Steven, from Virginia. So I can connect with them and then I can start looking through who's interacting with your stuff. Who else might I know? I can look through your friends list and say, oh, it turns out that we have 10 friends where we have multiple people in common in those friends. So it would be
do you like comment on their, like, how do you get engagement through like the social media posts? So a lot, like we talked this morning on one of Tim's posts for his anniversary, right? And I was sharing with him, like, he, dude, you got 66 likes, right, on your post. So you want a healthy amount of those kind of posts with the real estate when the real estate's going to get 5 likes, right? If you post a listing or something along those lines. How do you get people to engage with the post in the 5,000 group that you have on Facebook? Is there any hacks that you have there?
Yes. So it's, you really have to pay attention to what your audience is enjoying seeing from you. Okay. So the same way as if you're having a conversation and you start talking about the Jake Paul fight, and then everybody kind of wanders off. And then the next thing you know, you're kind of standing by yourself, right? Or people are on their phone. So we engage how people interact with us in real life. But we're not so good at doing that online. So if I'm posting a motivational Monday sort of quote, stole that from Luke. He invented motivational Monday.
Come on. No.
Then I need to watch and see, is my audience interacting with that? And then what I really like to say, to even get a spreadsheet. And at the end of the day, go through and say, I made a personal post with my wife in it. I made a personal post with my family in it. These were the interactions. I posted about my new shoes. These were the interactions. I posted about a new listing. These were the interactions. And start looking at, what does your audience like? Because there's also the whip effect. So if you go in, I made a post Sunday that has like 100 comments on it, like 300 engagements. Now Facebook's going to show my content more and more. So now I can post about my business stuff and people are going to see it, even though they might not interact with it. Right. So it's really keeping an eye on what people find interesting from you.
Instagram gives you a great tool on business. If your Instagram's a business profile, you can see the most engaged post and you can see a bunch of stuff about it. So you can quickly, easily sort by, this is the content that people are engaging with. Instagram also has a really cool feature. I think we learned this from Michelle Berman. Is that how you pronounce her last name?
It is. Yeah. I don't know what you're going to say, but
okay. Yeah. But that's
it.
But you know how you were saying you want a speaking gig in Virginia, and now you know Cody and Steven. So you're going to go see who else do they know that you're connected to? Well, LinkedIn gives you the feature, right, where you can go, these are the people that are also connected to Steven. Well, Instagram, if you go to someone's profile, there's a little plus on your Instagram where if you hit that, it will show you all the people that Instagram thinks you should connect with, that person is connected with. And so it's a way for you to meet new people based upon other people's followings. That, this is who Josh is connected with, that I also should be connected with, that Instagram thinks. And it does it, like a nice little graph of, trying to connect the dots of who they think is the most relevant to you, of who you have the most in common with, those type of things.
Yep. And Facebook will do the same thing. It'll give you friend suggestions. But again, when it comes to, to kind of circle back to that, who do I connect with? Send out the friend request. I think the way that you can do it wrong is to go and comment on, like, somebody. There's been people over the years that have coached, go comment on their last 5 things, send them a direct message and a Facebook friend request. We're in a stage now where that's too much, right? Just send a Facebook friend request. If you don't have mutual friends in common, let's say you want to be Facebook friends with Luke, then you can go through Luke's friend list and you can start seeing who he's connected with that you're not, even though you're not connected with him yet, and start gaining some mutual followers. If you can get up into that 20, 30, 200, 300 mutual followers, then people are more likely to accept your friend request as well. And the other thing you can do is you can message. So I can message Luke and say, hey, Luke, can you introduce me to Cody and Steven in a direct message? Because I'd like to see if there's an event over there I can speak in, because this year I've picked the states I want to go to, to travel to.
Picking your speaking gigs by where you want to travel. I love it.
Right?
You can speak for our team if you want to.
I can't go to Vegas anymore. It's too much. But again, when we're thinking about it like networking in real life, when we're posting out general knowledge, this is the coffee I had today, this is the listing I have, here's a cool book I read. That's like walking up to a group of people with your cell phone. I'm going to use my book as my cell phone and being like, hey, look at this cool picture of me. Isn't this neat? Right? So it's like a big group conversation. And then when we go in and we interact with their post, which is the second part of the 5x5x5, which is interacting with 5 people every day. Now, I knew my dog was going to grab a squeaky toy.
I had to ask, I was like, is that like your kid or your dog in the back?
And so those interactions are when we're in those tables of 4 or 5 different people. Jack, stop it.
You got to bring Jack onto the podcast.
A lot of pets make
we have. Why am I in trouble? But those are like our around the table conversations. And then when we move to a direct message, that's just simply a one-on-one conversation. So when we're sending out a friend request, you can just blindly send it and somebody's going to say, "Oh yeah, I think I recognize you," right? Or you can send a direct message or ask for an introduction the same way you would if you were at a networking event. You're like, "Hey, I've been meaning to meet Josh. Can you introduce me, Luke?" Right? So really, I really want you guys to play in your mind with, this really is just networking. We're just doing it online. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Do you ever, like, in that follow-up of the DM, like if I send a request to Steven who I don't know, am I following it up with business? Am I just connecting to build my sphere so he can start seeing me? What are you seeing has the most effect with the clients you're working with?
Again, it's kind of looking at where are we at with that relationship, right? So if I've met you in real life already, then I might send you a direct message saying, Cody, it was awesome doing the podcast with you. You're super fun. I
Look
like
great
your
in
shirt,
bikinis.
right? Whatever. So you can have that. If they've asked a question, that's my biggest hack. If somebody's asked a question, what's a good book to read right now? Who has the best cheeseburger in town? They're asking a question, taking your answer to a direct message is going to result in them messaging you back. So everything that I coach on in the 5x5x5 is the way to maximize your algorithm, right? So, and there's times that Pete Fournier is a great example. Pete Fournier and I are actually friends. I have his personal cell phone number and
We've
everything.
had Pete on the podcast.
Yeah. So, and Pete, so it was like a year and a half. And I was like, finally, we're at cocktail hour together. And I'm like, when are you going to accept my Facebook friend request? I want to tag you in this post. And he's like, what? So a lot of times we get I could have let that gone one of two ways. Oh, Pete doesn't actually like me, right? He didn't accept he just overlooked it. So sometimes it's going in and saying, hey, I sent a friend request. I think that we can do some business referrals back and forth. Or, what's your goal with that person? So you should have a goal with every person that you connect with. And people think that's skeevy. They think it's, shady. They have all these negative connotations to bringing people into your sphere of influence, and then we've gotten into this blanket statements of just bring value. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Right? Like, just bring value and people will ask you to do business. No, you need to create relationships with people, see how you can help their business and how they can help your business. That is not being selfish. If you don't have a successful business, you can't help anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
I love your view on that, because it's like, yeah, social media as a business, quit thinking as like it's a social fun interaction, but actually treat it as your business. You do specifically Facebook and LinkedIn. Is there a reason why you chose those two?
No. And when I say Facebook, I mean Instagram too, right? They're kind of connected. You gotta make a few different moves on Instagram. But the number one reason why I say Facebook and LinkedIn is the majority of people out there that have small businesses aren't using those two tools, and they're the most powerful and the easiest to use. You don't even have to put pictures on those. That's where Instagram it's that next level of content creation, if you will, right? There's a lot of small business owners that are too nervous to put a picture of themselves up. And I'm saying, you don't walk into a room like, hey, my makeup didn't come out right today, guys. So I'm just going to talk to you like this. Right. Or I don't like my voice, so I can't do videos, but I'm going to talk to you in real life. Right. So it's a lot of times it helps people. If you can master LinkedIn and Facebook, the other channels become much simpler to do.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is one that people do not spend a lot of time on from the agents that I've talked to and worked with, because they see it, I guess, as a recruiting type site or a sales type engine. Have you had any success working with clients that they use LinkedIn as a prospecting tool, or they use it as a connection tool to build relationships, or has it been where most of the people have found success on Facebook because it's more relationship driven on Facebook?
LinkedIn can be ran the same way as Facebook, and that's where you find those C-level people, right? That's where you find the guys that aren't on Facebook. And what you find is, as you make your power list, A lot of the people, if you're needing C-suite individuals, those higher ups in companies, they tend to still run their own LinkedIn's. It's really interesting. That's their social media, right? Where they're off of Facebook, or somebody that's tied in with a company that has a lot of regulations. LinkedIn is still a place where they're able to go and interact with people. So that is a place where if you're at the networking situation, and we'll call it the VIP area, that's where I feel like those sorts of people hang out. And that's your way into that VIP area. And people are watching, and people are desperate on LinkedIn for not spammy direct messages, and not spammy content, right? You can put out the same content that you're putting on Facebook, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air over on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would agree. Like LinkedIn, the problem with that I've seen with it, at least for myself being prospected, is everybody does it the same way. I've ranted about it on this podcast before, where they send you a connection with this nicety email request, and then they immediately turn around and send you basically a solicitation. But the problem is it would work if only one person did it. But because there's 4 in my inbox right now doing it, you go, wow, this is literally just the tactic, which everybody sees, and they tune it out. I've always seen like LinkedIn as, hey, you, Steven, could go and find, like you're saying, Sandra, all the C-level executives in Lynchburg, Virginia, or you could find all the business owners and then get more niche and find all the business owners in a certain category of business, and then see if you can create a meetup group or a mastermind that they would want to be a part of, or something like that. Like, it's a great tool to be able to almost build a database of a specific type of person. And then you take it to the next level. This is really common probably in insurance, not as much in real estate. But you could do what Amy Stockberger does, which is try to build relationships with the HR people at these bigger companies, and then offer essentially a program for the HR to offer to the company. So I know Amy, when we had her on the podcast, she partners with companies to bring them her home support program, where all of the employees get access to all of these, great benefits of being part of our home support program as a real estate agent. And it's like, that's where LinkedIn in my book comes extremely handy, because on Facebook, they don't mark themselves as HR directors, but on LinkedIn they do. And you can go, give me all the HR directors in Lynchburg, Virginia, and then start, reaching out to them and dinging them. I'm curious, like, what do you feel
Also,
the
Luke,
best tools? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the HR directors for hospitals are great for real estate agents. I've had a couple real estate agents I've worked with in the past that we've gone in, and then as doctors move in and stuff, you're the person. And the doctors tend to buy, not rent, and all of that stuff as well. So those relocation specialists
That's a
are
great point.
big.
Yeah, because doctors are coming in. Yeah, you're right. And they move around a decent amount.
Or traveling nurses tend to rent the bigger homes, right? So and then Medicare agents, they're always like, oh, I want to get connected with the senior centers. Awesome. Who's the HR person there? Who's the lady that runs the front desk? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, connect with them.
Yep.
Right?
Assisted living communities, the same. I've mentioned this strategy a couple of times: elder care attorneys and divorce attorneys. Like,
Yes.
you could use LinkedIn if you're a real estate agent, divorce attorneys, people. Well, it's a life event. So even in insurance, you need changes there. But then elder care attorneys, same thing. I'm curious, like social, one of the biggest issues for people is not the knowledge. It's just the action, right? They know head knowledge what they need to be doing, but it takes so much discipline, just like going to the gym. Have you found any tools or hacks in order to spend? I was intrigued by your tagline of 30 minutes or less, basically a day. Like, any tools that you're using for people, from automation to helping them create the content or anything like that?
So when it comes to automation, I am not a fan if you are just starting out. If this is something that you're not doing every day, it needs to be a calendar appointment. I've actually got it down to 20, so I'm gonna save you 10 more minutes. But the 5 by 5 that we go through, it's send 5 friend requests, interact with 5 people, and direct message 5 people, right? So you should have your list of people you want to be connected with. So then you go in, you try to figure out what 5 people you want to connect with, one person off of each list, 5 people off of each list. It doesn't matter. But you go in and I feel like it's really important that you do those reps yourself. It's almost like going to the gym, right? You need to get into that habit because you can't have somebody else work out for you. And it's the same with the social media. So people automatically go into, well, what time of day should I post? What kind of graphics should I post? What automation can I use? You don't do any of that in-person networking, right? You kind of feel where the day's going, what's trending, what are people talking about? And you need to have those genuine interactions. That's the big difference in making this work for you or not. So if you're just going in and you're posting, the front of a house every single day, or I sell life insurance every single day, there's no personality in that. There's no conversation. You're not starting a conversation. So you can go in and send your 5 friend requests. You can interact with 5
Was
people.
your dog? You just looked.
Well, I thought my front door opened. I was like, oh, my husband's in the other room. This is crazy. It's like a circus. He's all trying to be quiet. Not me anyway. But in the back of the book, for 2 reasons, there's social media prompts in here. I did 555 social media prompts because fun fact, a book has to be 100 pages to publish it on.
I did not know that
on Amazon. So my book is exactly 100 pages.
How are you using AI with your content creation?
Well, that I would call that again level 2. So if we're at level 1, we want to go through and get the book and use these prompts and highlight them in here. So one is what's a childhood dream you had that you're still chasing, and what steps are you taking to achieve it? Right? That's a prompt that you can go in and you can say, okay, I wanted to be a professional softball player. So I didn't do that. So now I'm a professional speaker.
Would you pose that as a question on social to your audience?
That again is where you have to watch how your audience interacts. So my audience, if I asked them a question like that and then shared my thoughts on that, my audience is very much entrepreneurial driven, all kind of alphas, right? So they're going to want to tell their story about how they had this childhood dream and they're crushing it, right? If you're connected with more local area people and you're working referrals and connections and stuff, then that point you probably just want to share your story and then let them interact naturally. So everything really does come back to how are people responding to this? Your channel's like its own reality show, and you need to see, how are people responding to the content that you're putting out. Now, when it comes to AI is incredible. I just started doing what I'm calling one-day brand kits, where we go in, we spend 6 hours together, and we knock out your entire brand. If you don't have a logo, we'll get you a logo, we'll get you a brand voice, your tone, all of that kind of stuff. And we do that with the assistance of AI. So by the time we're done, we have an AI that talks in your voice. So now, Cody, you can go in the morning and say, I want to highlight my childhood dream, and give it some prompts, and it's going to help you write something that's really powerful in your own voice. If you don't, and we don't, what's really interesting with AI is it used to be where you had to really spend days and weeks and use crafted prompts and all of that kind of stuff. We're not there anymore. It's gotten really intuitive. So once you have your brand voice, your mission, vision, value statements, your compliance stuff, right? If I'm working with a Medicare agent, we train it on the CMS guidelines. Same with financial advisors, things like that. So then you have a really powerful tool that speaks in your own tone. What is happening if you don't do those steps ahead of time, then you just go into ChatGPT and you're like, write me a post about why you should buy a house from me. It's going to give you something very generic. So now you're the guy walking into the networking room and you're like, hello, I'm a real estate agent. That's all I want to talk about. Right. And we've all met that guy.
Steven is that guy. No,
Steven. Learn on this.
Yeah.
I felt like it looked like I hit a chord there. Sorry.
Tears coming out.
You got Steven coming in as the generic real estate guy, and Cody coming in his bikini from TikTok. The show has gone all over the place today. Man.
The biggest takeaway I want you guys to get out of that is you are having a conversation with your followers. What do you want to tell them? If you were in a room with them holding a cup of coffee or a glass of champagne, what would you talk about that day? What's going on in your life? What's relevant? What do you want? We talked about, like LinkedIn being kind of a carbon copy direct message system. Be the change you want to see in LinkedIn. Be the change you want to see in the world. If you want the world to be more positive, be more positive, right? We can't out positive Luke, but we can try, right?
Exactly.
The bar is high.
Maybe not today, though, guys, after I got triggered.
And you know who's a really good example is Andrew. Andrew's a good example of everything. He's just a good example of how to be a human. But he doesn't get a ton of interactions on his Facebook. But if there was a time where he got back from a Reminder Media trip and didn't post, I'm headed back to see my girls, we would all worry about him. Right? We don't interact on those posts very often, but we've come to expect it, right? And I liken that back to like if you turn the TV on a Thursday night and Grey's Anatomy wasn't there, we'd all lose our minds, right? So don't get caught up in the interactions that you're having because people are watching and we're not quite clicking and liking things as much as we used to, but we get to know people. I know that Andrew's excited to get back home to his family and watch the Eagles, right? We know that about him. And those are conversation starters that we can have when we're teaching people about us, right? And my absolute favorite thing about that, whether you get 10 interactions on it or 10,000, people are watching and they're remembering it, and it cuts out the small talk. You're able to get down to business when you meet each other in real life, or you move to a direct message and say, hey, Cody and Steven, what can we do to get me over to Virginia, right? That can be a great direct message because we've already broken the ice in a different way. So now we can get into, and we should always be thinking about the same way we do it in networking situations. How can we form referral partnerships? How can we do, a co-branding thing together? Do you need a house? Do you need a book, right? What do you need? What do I need? And how can we all work together? So a power play that I really like to use, especially on LinkedIn, but it works on Facebook as well, is let's say that Josh goes in and he gets that HR director for the hospital. Now he puts together a partner on demand group, and he puts a financial advisor in there and a personal lines insurance agent in there and somebody that handles health insurance and a house painter and a Christmas light hanger. And now you have this group of people for this HR person. So if she's like, hey, the doctors are wondering who hangs Christmas lights, boom, it's Steve. He does it. Reach out to him. He's right here in our group. So you're making your own like BNI groups with these different connections that you have. You're going to own your local market doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
Really good advice.
As long as you send Reminder Media magazines and keep yourself top of mind.
There we go.
Thank you, Sandra, so much for coming on the podcast today.
I pay her money. We said every time she would say magazines, we give it. No.
Before we close out, Sandra, though, let people know how they can connect with you and how they can get your book.
Okay. I'm at sandragebhart.com, GBHARDT. You can check me out on my website. I've got links back to everything. The book's also on Amazon, but sandragebhart.com will get you everywhere you need to be.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Cody, Steven, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you all so much for listening. You can get the links that Sandra mentioned over at staypaidpodcast.com in the show notes of this episode. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a 5-star review along with a comment. And the best way to support the show is share this episode with somebody that you know. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can follow us on social media. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Sandra, thank you so much for coming on. It's been too long. I'm glad we were able to get you on. Everybody go buy her book. You will not be disappointed. I think it's absolute gold on hey, social media, most of us are not going to be the influencer and the viral person with millions of views and hundreds of thousands of views even, but we can definitely use it as a platform to network and build relationships with people. And I think if you focus that way, instead of just trying to create the next viral video, you will have so much more success. Take advantage. Your action item for this episode is the 5x5x5. Friend 5 people, DM 5 people, and then engage with 5 people on social media. Do that every single day. Do that for a straight week and watch how those conversations just lead to more and more relationships. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.